Hey guys, it's Skullduggery8 here. This is my video journal entry. And today I want to talk to you about agency, as in choice, freedom. This is something I talk a lot with people about, like philosophically and abstractly, theoretically, in classes and things like that. But don't I don't talk as much about sort of my personal thoughts about it. So this video is about my personal experience and how I think about agency and my own free will. And to illustrate this, I want to tell a story that happened the other day. So on Saturday, I went to the gym, and I was feeling kind of tired, so I decided to meditate on a chair in the front, like in front of the front desk at the gym. So I just sat there and I closed my eyes for like 14 minutes. Okay. And after like a minute, I realized my eye was incredibly itchy because I have allergies from the pollen. It's springtime. But I did not want to itch it. You know, I had itched it before, and that just made it more itchy. And also it just like hurts my eye, and it's bad for me, and it gets germs into my eye. So I really didn't want to, but I felt this tremendous craving, like a literal, like, my body craved especially my right eye being itched. And then as I was meditating, as I do, I sort of took a step back from that and was like, let me kind of observe what's going on here, right? And what was going on was that my whole body, my whole sense experience was telling me that I should do something, and my rational brain was telling me, no, I shouldn't do it. Which is sort of an interesting, like an example, because it aligns with a lot of other things, right? I mean, to state the obvious, anytime I want to eat something really sweet but bad for me, or when I want to not do work and watch YouTube, or when I want to sleep later, it's like my body is telling me I need to do something, and my mind is telling me no. And Jonathan Haidt describes this really well as a rider riding an elephant. The rider is your conscious, rational mind, and the elephant is the rest of you. And you can only really steer the elephant. You can't control it. The elephant is just going to go in whatever direction it's going to go. It's a lot stronger than the rider. But we kind of think of ourselves as riders. We think of ourselves as rational agents, but we're not. We're just steering this. We're steering our bodies, our animal meat bodies that want all these different things. And we're sort of like, let me sort of, try to make this logical and try to, rein this meat body in so that it can make good choices. And that's why I think we have a lot less agency than we think in a day-to-day level. One is because our animal brain and our body is doing a lot of the decision-making for us. Another reason is that we often fall into the same habits that require the least thought. So if you think about the amount of choices you make every day, sure, they might feel like a lot of different opportunities for freedom, but really you're going down these same neural pathways and same habits that you always do. For example, rubbing your eye, right? Yeah. So what ended up happening was I decided to rub my finger on a chair and on the wall and on the floor to make my finger here dirty, right? That way, if I knew my finger had touched the floor, I wouldn't be able to rub my eyes because it would be so gross, right? And that's sort of a microcosm for a lot of strategies for exercising agency, which is, as James Clear says in Atomic Habits, like, make the bad habit as difficult as possible. Don't try to resist it. Just set it up so that it's difficult, that it's unpleasant, right? It would be unpleasant for me to rub my eye with a dirty finger. And so that actually, I felt like that decreased the urge. Not only did it make it impossible for me to rub my finger while I was still thinking about that, but it also made the itch feel literally less strong, which is really interesting. That once the opportunity had finished, my body sort of gave up on focusing on the itch and whether I was going to, because it knew it wasn't now that I had gotten my finger dirty. And I guess what I want this as like to segue to is like, I was trading away a piece of agency to make a long-term choice, right? Like I didn't want to rub my eyes, and so I made my finger dirty. So I literally didn't have the choice to engage in that. And so we think of decision making as free, but a lot of time what making a choice means is making the other choice not choosable. Does that make sense? Like you are taking away agency from yourself in order that you may commit to a choice that you're making. And so you're trading away in the moment freedom for a long-term, a free choice. And that applies to like a bunch of other things too. And it really strikes me as like a trade-off I have to make. Like if we just broaden out and I think about like my day-to-day routine, right? And my habits, like I used to have I still do. I have like a big list of habits, and I kind of like scheduling. I think scheduling and planning is good, and like having a routine is good. But if you think about it, that is like trading away my day-to-day choices. A big problem with my habit schedule, my system for like self-improvement, was that it felt like claustrophobic towards the end of it before I took a break. It felt like all my day was a series of things I had already set out for myself to do. My past self had told my future self, you're going to spend time X, Y, Z. That's that. You have no say in the matter. That made me feel bad, and that wasn't, I felt like I couldn't do anything spontaneous or fun, and I felt bad when I did fun things and missed habits, which was not ideal. But of course, you need to have a routine and you need to have good habits. But making good habits a lot of the time means trading away a certain amount of agency in your day-to-day life, right? In order that you may make a long-term choice, right? Like I trade away my agency to waste the day or eat unhealthy or play video games all day. I trade that away so that I can make a long-term, freer choice with more of my agency. But there has to be a balance, because if you trade it all away, if you trade all of your day-to-day agency in order that you may have this long-term agency about who you want to be, it's gonna feel really bad, and it's gonna feel in the moment that you don't have a say in the matter sometimes, at least sometimes, which is unpleasant. Anyways, then, as I was sitting there meditating with my itchy eye, another thing that happened was my brain made up a bunch of reasons. Before I got my finger dirty, my brain was making up a bunch of reasons why I should itch my eye. For example, one thing I thought was, hey, look, isn't this interesting? You're meditating and you're observing your like cravings and your urges, and it's really getting you to think about agency. Why don't you just rub your eye, see how it feels? And that'll give you a metaphor for what it feels like when you indulge in whatever like bad habit or, whatever choice you're trying to avoid. That'll give you like I feel for it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Like it would be interesting, but I was like, no, wait, hold on. The whole point of this is I don't want to. My rational mind is saying I don't want to. Another thing it was saying was like, oh yeah, you should go downstairs and wash your hands. By the way, this is after I got my finger dirty. You should go downstairs, wash your hands, and then rub your eye. And the reason that's good is because you'll wash your hands, which is always good. It's good to wash your hands. By the way, you can wash your face while you're at it. But after you wash your hands, you'll get to rub your eye. And if you don't rub your eye, you're not going to wash your hands. Therefore, you should just go downstairs, wash your hands, get really clean, and just as a reward, rub your eye. So it made up these elaborate arguments, rational arguments. And I was observing this. Like I was like, that is a story that I find convincing, but you just made that up. Animal brain, right? It made up these stories to get me to like logically agree with my cravings, right? With rubbing my eye. But the stories were just like, the conclusion was already set before the stories were made. The stories are just made to serve the conclusion. It's just the emotional, it was the elephant, making up a story to explain to the rider why the elephant was, going the wrong way, right? Like, oh, I'll circle back and I'll zigzag and this is a shortcut, so that the rider would go along with it. And that's something that happens a lot, I feel like, in my day-to-day life. And I need to be able to, in the words of my friend Jack Shea, I need to be able to parse that, right? When is a narrative I'm telling myself really true? And when is it my emotional, just urges hijacking my rationality and telling a story? Not that that's necessarily always bad, just I should be able to know when that's happening. And finally, the last part of this story is I finished meditating. My alarm went off, 14 minutes went by, and I took out my phone and I opened Instagram and started looking at reels. And within 2 minutes, I was rubbing my eye with my dirty finger because I had already begun immersing myself in the reels. And so any semblance of my of agency, especially, one that I had to sort of think, it's that was gone. I just totally, not even no conscious decision at all. Didn't even realize I just rubbed my eye. And there's an obvious sort of moral to that, which is that our agency is compromised more often than we think, in our day-to-day life. How much freedom do you really have to control your unconscious mind when you are distracted, or when you are absorbed in something, or when you're just absent-minded, which, by the way, that's a lot of the time, because I feel like people don't go around thinking really hard about, what am I doing? How am I choosing this? How should I, people don't make pros and cons for just everyday decisions. They do once in a while, but most of your day is spent, away from the decision-making process. And so a lot of that is just unconscious, like rubbing your eye while watching reels. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed some things I've been thinking. I'll see you later. 13 minutes. Good night.